Dear students, now we shall try to understand the other stanzas of this very beautiful poem, A Prayer for My Daughter, written by W.B. Yeats. We have completed 4 stanzas of this poem, and we know that here the poet is speaking as a father, and he is praying for his infant daughter Annie Butler Yeats. He is very much anxious for her safety and well being in a world which is very naughty and anarchic. We saw in the very beginning that the child is sleeping innocently through a howling storm. And the great problem is that is in the mind of the poet is how to protect the innocent child from the wrath of the anarchic world. That is the future years, he says, future years have come with a frenzied drum. So he fears of that. He also wants that his daughter should have beauty, but not so much beauty, and as to make, which can make her proud. So she must have a balanced beauty. He gives examples from the history and legend of our beautiful women like Helen, etc., who not only suffered much themselves, but they also brought the great suffering to others because of their pride and vanity. So the poet doesn't want that his daughter should grow in her character the over prideness and vanity or the proud. So now we go with the stanza number 5. That is, let me recite. In courtesy I had have her chiefly learned. Hearts are not had as a gift, but hearts are earned by those that are not entirely beautiful, yet many that have played the fool. For beauty's very self hath charm made wise, and many a poor man that has wrought, loved, and thought himself beloved, from a glad kindness cannot take his eyes. So, in these lines, the poet is praying that his daughter may be particularly gifted with courtesy. In courtesy, I would have her chiefly learn. That is, he would like that her daughter should develop or grow with a gift of courtesy, because he understands, the poet thinks that hearts are not had as a gift, but hearts are earned. So the hearts of the lovers are not taken as a gift by those especially who are not beautiful, not fully beautiful, but hearts are won or earned even by those that are not entirely beautiful, which are not entirely beautiful. So the beauty itself is not the gift which attracts the hearts of the others, but it is courtesy, it is good manners, it is the simplicity, it is the kindness, it is the behavior that attracts the lovers and the others' heart and soul. So he says that those who are entirely beautiful may not attract the hearts of the others. Therefore, he doesn't want that his daughter should be over beautiful, but she should have the quality of courtesy in her. Yet many that have played the fool, for beauty is very self a charm made by. Here the poet is in fact referring to his own example. Here he means to say that those who have followed the beauty, those who reign after the beauty and played like fool, like madness, those who become mad because of the beauty, they faced the otherwise results. They faced the otherwise results. That is, they could not get the same love from the opposite side, from the other side. They loved the beauty and made them beloved, but the beloved did not love them. So many poor lovers of physical beauty who have wandered in their beloved's dreamlands, loved them passionately, loved them very affectionately, seriously, and thought their sweethearts also will love them. But this doesn't happen. This didn't happen. And they found that those women were not uh, not of the same kind, but they ignored them. They didn't love them. So here the poet refers to his own experience that he loved Morgan because she was very beautiful, and she was very beautiful and he loved her very much, but she didn't love him. So he failed in his love affairs. So he says, many a poor man that has robbed, loved and thought himself beloved, that she would also love them, but they didn't get. So from a glad kindness cannot take his eyes. So it is only the glad kindness which can attract the heart of the others. It is only the glad kindness which can return the love, which can be more truthful and faithful. So it is the glad kindness which can attract around her the souls of the others, the hearts of the others, not only the beauty. So this is what we have in this stanza. In our next stanza, let's see what he says. May she become a flourishing hidden tree, that all her thoughts may like the linnet be, and have no business but dispensing round their magnanimities of sound, nor but in merriment begin a chase, nor but in merriment a quarrel. Oh, may she live like some green laurel rooted in one dear perpetual place. Now the poet prays that his daughter's hidden soul may flourish like a tree. May she become a flourishing hidden tree. So her soul should flourish like a hidden tree, and that her thoughts may be as innocent and as cheerful as the linnet's notes, and that all her thoughts and all her ideas should be innocent, should be sweet like the linnets bee. Like, because the linnets are surrounding to the hidden tree and they sing songs, and their sweetness of the song is well spread around, all around. So he wants that his daughter should be like a hidden tree and have no business but dispensing round their magnanimities of the. So the daughter should spread The magnanimities of sound, just like the linnet birds spread their sweet sounds around the Eden tree, in the same way, his daughter should also dispense around their magnanimities, their kindness, their gladness, their courtesy, good manners, all around, all around her. So, she, her soul may have no business other than that of speaking words of courtesy only and doing deeds of the kindness to those around it and out of her innocent and cheerful thoughts. So, this is what he says. Then he says, nor but in merriment begin a chase. Then he says that she may not take a drink or start a quarrel except for the sake of fun. So he considers that if she takes a drink, or if she quarrels with someone, she should do all these things in a merriment only, for the sake of fun only, not seriously, not seriously. So he wishes her to love like a green laurel tree. In the next lines, oh, may she live like some green laurel. So he also wants that she should live like some green laurel tree which is rooted at one place, one dear perpetual, continuously at one place. So he also wants that a life that is rooted in tradition, a happy life. And so he wishes that his daughter's life should be rooted in one place and tradition, like a laurel tree. And such a fixity in place and tradition would bring in the maximum of happiness for her. And therefore he prays that she may become a flourishing hidden laurel tree that symbolizes, this tree symbolizes peace and prosperity. And she should be magnanimous and of good manners, and she should play the quarrel only in merriments. So he recommends the quarrel and the drink only in merriments, not in serious. But he here compares that his daughter should develop, should grow like a hidden tree or like some green laurel tree. That is, she should be fixed, she should follow the traditions. Tradition brings the honesty and permanence in the soul and mind. Then, in the last stanza of this lecture, stanza number 7, let's see what he says. My mind, because the minds that I have loved, the sort of beauty that I have approved, prosper but little, has dried up of late, yet knows that to be choked with hate may well be of all evil chances chief. If there is no hatred in a mind, assault and battery of the wind can never tear the linnet from the leaf. So, in these lines, as we have seen, that the poet is praising courtesy, charm, wisdom, and good manners, glad kindness. And he wants that his daughter should be free from the hatredness, especially the intellectual hatredness. He prays that the soul of his daughter may grow and reach self-fulfillment like a flourishing tree that we have already seen. And he has also explained his own experience that he suffered much unhappiness due to Mordgon's misconduct. The people who had liked the great beauty but could not get the happiness in life, but they got only little happiness in life. So here he says that his experience tells him that to have in one's heart hatred for a person may well give rise to a great suffering for one's soul. So my mind, because the minds that I have loved, the sort of the beauty that I have approved, that I appreciated, that I admired, did prosper only little, and it dried up of late. That is, no positive results, but it destroyed the fortune of the poet himself. Yet knows that to be choked with hate. Therefore, he says that the buffets of the wind of misfortune can never disturb the composure of the soul. So he wants that his daughter should be free from all feelings of the hatred. She should develop qualities of characters and manners. To cherish some intellectual hatred is the worst fault in a person. So it knows that to be choked with hate may well be of all evil chances cheap. So evil chances, misfortunes, that will bring only the misfortune to one who loves the other only because of the beauty. If there is no hatred in mind, assault and so hatred, and specifically the intellectual hatred. The poet thinks that the intellectual hatredness should not be in one's mind. If that is there, then the battery of the wind definitely will attack upon the soul of the courteous man. So he has a desire that his daughter should not have any kind of hatredness in her mind, because this is the only thing which assault and the fire of this wind definitely separate the linnet from the leaf, just like linnet from the leaf. So linnet, which is surrounding to the tree or the leaf and spreading the musical sound, if there is the hatredness, that will tear the linnet from the leaf. But if there is no hatred in a mind, then the assault, then the battery of the wind can never tear, can never separate the linnet from the leaf. So, here the poet is having desire for his daughter in this way. His mind is dried up of late, which is withering away. However, quite steadfastly, he keeps the temptation of hate away. So he wants that the hatredness should be away. Hate should not be come into the mind and soul of the daughter. He knows very well that a mind that is afflicted by hate is doomed, because the smoldering cinders of the hatred consume the noble creativity of the mind. So the noble creativity of the mind is consumed by the hatredness. So it is the hate which, intellectual hatredness, which destroys the courtesy, good manners, kindness, etc. And if there is no jealousy and hate in one's mind, then there is no problem. In the line, to be choked with hate may well be of all evil chances chief. He asserts this with conviction. So he accepts this, that if someone is choked with hate, then the evil chances, that is the misfortune, will definitely be there, and that will destroy his or her good fortune. So, dear student, this is all for just now, and thank you very much for listening to this explanation of these three stanzas from this poem. The last three stanzas we will discuss in our next video. Till then, bye bye.